Welcome. This is the news within the week coming to you live from on Planet Radio 10 on Spectrum Television. Live from Uyo, the capital city of Akwa Ibom State, Nigeria. Now let's take a look at the headlines. Vice President Shettima hails Imo State's political, cultural legacy, pledges more federal support. Senate President Akpabio clarifies Senate's position on electronic transmission of results. In other news, France investigates ex-minister Jacques Lang over Epstein links. We'll bring you the details of these stories and more in a moment. Welcome and thanks for joining us. This is the news within the week, bringing you a recap of major stories and updates around the globe. We begin the news with the nation's leader, President Bola Tinubu, who has set in motion a sweeping reform of Nigeria's sports sector, directing key ministries and agencies of the federal government to reset sports funding and make the industry more economically viable. The president announced the plan in a message posted on his verified X handle, where he described sports as one of Nigeria's strongest national brands and a major tool for unity and global influence. Tinubu said the reforms were anchored on the Renewed Hope Initiative for Nigeria's sports economy, which he described as a strategy to position sports as a driver of job creation, tourism, investment, and global influence. He added that his administration will build a stronger sports ecosystem through scientific athlete development, active grassroots participation, revitalized sports federations, and hosting major international events in Nigeria. Meanwhile, President Bola Tinubu during the week expanded the Nigeria for Women program to reach 25 million beneficiaries nationwide. This was as he reaffirmed his administration's commitment to women's economic inclusion and national development. Speaking at the presidential launch of the program's scale-up at the presidential Villa Abuja, the president, who was represented by Vice President Shettima, noted that Nigeria cannot achieve sustainable growth without placing women at the center of national planning. According to him, a nation that relegates its women is a nation bound for implosion, stressing that it is why his administration has not only placed women at the forefront of decision making, but has also entrusted them with leadership in causes that redeem the national promise. The president designated 2026 as the year of social development and families in Nigeria, directing coordinated action across all levels of government. The declaration followed a memorandum of understanding signed during his January official visit to Turkey, aimed at strengthening family cohesion and social welfare systems. President Tinubu commended the Ministry of Women Affairs and Social Development for integrating technology into policy implementation and for reorganizing social development into a more coherent system since the launch of the Renewed Hope Social Impact Intervention in Lafia last year, noting that the transformation reflected what purposeful leadership can achieve. Away from that, Vice President Shettima yesterday applauded Imo State's exceptional contributions to Nigeria's political, intellectual, and economic development over the past 50 years, assuring the state of stronger federal government support as it charts a new course for the next 5 decades. Speaking at the Golden Jubilee celebration of Imo State's creation, Shettima conveyed President Bola Tinubu's goodwill message and described the state as a critical partner in Nigeria's progress, citing its leadership footprint, creative talent, and agricultural strength. Meanwhile, Vice President Kashim Shettima yesterday conveyed the condolences of President Bola Tinubu to the government and people of Kwara over the recent killings in Moro and Nuku communities in Kaima Leku government area. Shettima, who spoke on behalf of President Tinubu during a condolence visit to the state, described the incidents as tragic and shocking, noting that the victims were peaceful residents engaged in legitimate livelihoods. He said that the affected communities had for centuries practiced peaceful and tolerant forms of Islam, adding that the violence was alien to their history, culture, and religious traditions. Shettima disclosed that the federal government had deployed a battalion of the Nigerian army to the area, assuring that all necessary measures were being taken to restore peace and security. In a related development, the Southern Governors Forum also commiserated with the government and people of Kwara State over the deadly terrorist attacks that claimed at least 162 lives in the villages of Woro and Nuku in Kaima Leku government area of the state. In a statement issued in Abeokuta, the chairman of the forum and governor of Ogun State, Dapo Abiodun, expressed deep sorrow over the incident, describing it as a tragic and unfortunate act in which innocent and law-abiding citizens were brutally murdered while going about their lawful activities. The governor condemned the reported targeting of residents who allegedly refused to adopt Sharia law, noting that homes and shops were burnt while several people were kidnapped by the attackers, who are believed to be affiliated with Boko Haram. Abiodun called on law enforcement agencies to track down the perpetrators and ensure they are prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, insisting that Nigerians deserve to live without fear of senseless violence. In a separate development, the federal government within the week approved the reopening of the Samia land border in Kebbi State for trans-border trade with strict security and compliance guidelines. The Comptroller General of Customs, CJ Adewale Adeniyi, made the disclosure while responding to concerns raised by stakeholders, including exporters, transporters and onion traders during an interactive session in Kebbi State. He assured economic operators that the federal government was not indifferent to the hardship caused by the prolonged border restrictions, noting that the issue had engaged high-level diplomatic security and customs authorities across Nigeria and neighboring countries. The customs boards revealed that Nigeria recently received an urgent delegation from the Niger Republic Customs Service and members of its Chamber of Commerce in Abuja to fast-track solutions to the trade bottleneck. According to him, the decision to reopen the Samia corridor followed strong political will from President Bola Tinubu and cooperation from neighboring governments. Elsewhere, the Federal Accounts Allocation Committee (FAC) during the week said it shared a total of 1.969 trillion naira among the federal government, states and local government councils from federation revenue that accrued in December 2025. This was disclosed in a communique issued by FARC at the end of its monthly meeting. According to the communique, the total distributable revenue comprised 1.084 trillion naira in statutory revenue, 846.51 billion naira from value-added tax, and 38.11 billion naira from the electronic money transfer levy. FAC noted that a total gross revenue of 2.585 trillion naira was available in December 2025. From the amount, 104.69 billion naira was deducted as cost of collection, while 511.58 billion naira was set aside for transfers, refunds and savings. The communique further stated that gross statutory revenue for December 2025 stood at 1.63 trillion naira, representing a decline of 105.21 billion naira compared to the 1.74 trillion naira recorded in November 2025. From the red chambers, the Senate President Godswill Akpabio yesterday dismissed criticisms trailing the Senate's amendment of the Electoral Act, saying commentators and civil society actors are misjudging the legislature based on an incomplete legislative process and misunderstanding of parliamentary procedures. Akpabio spoke in Abuja as special guest of honor at the unveiling of a book, speaking on the controversy surrounding the removal of the phrase real-time electronic transmission of election results. Akpabio said the Senate had not concluded work on the bill and that public debate was premature. Akpabio explained that the votes and proceedings stage allows senators to correct, amend or clarify decisions taken on the floor before the final approval, stressing that only after that process could the Senate's position be considered final. He criticized commentators for what he described as abuse of the legislature, accusing some civil society actors of attempting to impose their views on lawmakers. In a related development, the Nigerian Bar Association (NBA) yesterday urged the National Assembly to reconsider and approve a proposed amendment to the Electoral Amendment Bill that would mandate the electronic transmission of election results from polling units. In a statement shared on X, the NBA explained that the amendment would require presiding officers of the Independent National Electoral Commission to transmit results in real time to the INEC result viewing portal. Immediately after Form EC8A has been duly signed, stamped and countersigned by party agents. The statement further added that credible elections are the bedrock of constitutional democracy and called on lawmakers to demonstrate legislative responsibility and statesmanship by voting in favor of the proposed amendments compelling the electronic transmission of election results. Meanwhile, the Conference of Nigeria Political Parties (CNPP) in the course of the week called on the Bipartisan Conference Committee of the National Assembly to adopt the House of Representatives' version of the Electoral Act Amendment Bill 2026, describing it as critical to improving electoral transparency and credibility in Nigeria. In a statement issued out to journalists by its Deputy National Publicity Secretary James Ezema, the CNPP said the House version, which makes electronic transmission of election results mandatory, represents a more credible framework for conducting free, fair and verifiable elections. According to the CNPP, the House bill expressly compels presiding officers to upload polling unit results to the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) results viewing portal in real time immediately after collation at polling units, thereby eliminating discretion in the transmission of results. The group, however, criticized the Senate for retaining provisions of the Electoral Act of 2022 that grants INEC discretionary powers over the mode and manner of transmitting election results and accreditation data. The CNPP described the Senate's position as unacceptable and anti-democratic, warning that it could undermine public confidence in the electoral process and pose serious risk to Nigeria's democratic stability. In the meantime, the Nigeria Labour Congress (NLC) has raised the alarm over what it described as dangerous ambiguity surrounding the amendment of the 2022 Electoral Act, warning that unresolved contradictions from the Senate could undermine public trust and threaten the credibility of the 2027 general elections. In a statement by its president, Joe Ajaero, the NLC accused the Senate of sending conflicting signals on the issue of electronic transmission of election results, urging lawmakers to immediately clarify their final position in the interest of transparency, democratic integrity, and national stability. On electoral matters, the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) yesterday conducted a mock accreditation and voting exercise across the Federal Capital Territory as part of preparations for the area council election scheduled for February 21st, 2026. Addressing supervisory presiding officer trainees during the trainer session, INEC Chairman Professor Joash Amopiton San said the exercise was designed to test the Commission's readiness and build the capacity of election officials ahead of the polls. He urged the trainees to take the training seriously and to study the official manual prepared by the Commission. Amopiton reminded the SPOs of their statutory duties and encouraged them to avoid compromise, stressing that Nigeria urgently needs a stable and credible electoral process. According to him, INEC is committed to restoring and strengthening public confidence in the electoral system through proper training, simulations, and field testing. In another development, the Nigerian Immigration Service (NIS) within the week dismissed online claims suggesting that a specific region of the country has been disqualified from obtaining passports. According to a statement issued on Saturday, the agency described the reports as entirely false and a gross misrepresentation of ongoing efforts to modernize passport services. NIS explained that it has introduced a phased onboarding program system to migrate passport offices, including those in foreign missions, to a centralized production framework. The initiative, which began in 2024, aims to improve efficiency and service delivery, not to exclude any citizen. Still to come in the news. Federal government to strengthen gas to power chain for industrial growth. Stay tuned for details of this and more in a moment. Welcome back and thanks for staying tuned. It's still the news within the week. We'll bring you more stories. We head now to Africa, where President John Mahama of Ghana has recalled the country's High Commissioner to Nigeria, Baba Ahmed, over alleged links to electoral malpractices in Ghana's parliamentary election primaries for Ayawaso East constituency. The statement issued by the Ghanaian presidency on Saturday in Accra explained that Ahmed, an aspirant, was recalled due to his alleged role in election malpractice as a serving public officer. According to the statement, the recall takes effect immediately, and the decision is intended to avoid any perception of impropriety or conflict with the government's Code of Conduct for political appointees. The decision follows allegations of voter inducement during the National Democratic Congress NDC parliamentary primaries held on Saturday in the constituency. Elsewhere, Cameroon and Equatorial Guinea during the week signed a bilateral treaty for joint extraction of gas from the Yolanda gas reserves in March 2023. The official signing ceremony, which Equatorial Guinea's Vice President Theodore Obiang presided over, officialized the treaty and represented a concrete step towards extraction. The two countries aim to extract gas and liquefy it at a specialized center in Punta Europa before exporting it. Reports say gas will also be extracted along a second axis to Bimpaga in Cameroon. According to reports, while the project is celebrated for the economic sovereignty it will push for the region and the additional jobs creation opportunity, the environmental impact of offshore gas extraction remains a heavy shadow that could have negative long-term consequences. Still in Africa, Congolese President Felix Tshisekedi within the week reaffirmed his commitment to inclusive and peaceful dialogue between all people in the Democratic Republic of Congo. In an address to the diplomatic corps in Kinshasa, he said national unity was more than a fundamental requirement. His comments come as fighting continues in the east of the country between the army and Rwandan-backed M23 rebels. Called for by part of the opposition, the idea of an inter-Congolese national dialogue has also been promoted by Angolan President João Lourenço in recent weeks. Tshisekedi, however, set out conditions for it to take place, including that the process must take place on home soil and under institutional control. On the foreign scene, financial crime prosecutors in France say they have opened a preliminary inquiry into former culture minister Jacques Lang over his links to Jeffrey Epstein. According to reports, Lang, who was a major figure in French socialist governments between the 1980s and 2000s, is being investigated for suspected laundering of tax fraud proceeds. Lang, now 86, denies wrongdoing and described the allegations against him as baseless. United States President Donald Trump, in an executive order signed during the week, says that he could impose additional tariffs on countries that continue to trade with Iran. The order does not specify the rates that could be imposed, but uses 25% as an example. According to the order, the tariffs will apply to goods imported into the United States from any nation that directly or indirectly purchases imports or otherwise acquires any goods or services from Iran. This comes amid ongoing talks between senior U.S. and Iranian officials in Oman following several weeks of threats from both sides. In the meantime, U.S. President Donald Trump, in the course of the week, endorsed Japan's Prime Minister Senator Takeshi ahead of a snap election in her country. Trump, in a social media post, said Takeshi has proven to be a strong, powerful and wise leader, adding that she will not let the people of Japan down. Takeshi, 64, became Prime Minister in October after she won the leadership race in her party and secured enough support in Parliament. Still on the foreign scene, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says the U.S. wants the war with Russia to end by June, adding that both sides had been invited to the U.S. for talks next week. According to reports, America proposed for the first time that the two negotiating teams, Ukraine and Russia, meet in the United States of America, probably in Miami, in a week. Meanwhile, Russia has continued its attacks on Ukraine's energy infrastructure, causing further widespread blackouts during freezing conditions. On our business news, the federal government within the week commenced a comprehensive review of the National Agricultural Growth Scheme and Agro Pocket project after recording 2.5 million metric tons of produce valued at 2.131 trillion naira over 4 farming seasons. Speaking at the workshop on the implementation framework of the National Agricultural Growth Scheme and Agro Pocket Program, the Minister of State for Agriculture and Food Security, Senator Aliyu Abdullahi, said the meeting was convened to assess progress and strengthen implementation. Abdullahi noted that the achievements had positively impacted the nation's food supply and pricing, saying that its significant milestone achievement has contributed substantially to increased food availability and the stabilization of food prices in the country. He added that the review aligned with President Bola Tinubu's declaration of emergency on food and nutrition security. Meanwhile, the federal government during the week unveiled fresh measures to strengthen Nigeria's gas-to-power value chain, describing natural gas as the backbone of electricity supply and a critical enabler of the country's industrialization drive. The government disclosed that gas currently fuels more than 70% of Nigeria's on-grid electricity generation, but admitted that structural weaknesses across supply, infrastructure and commercial arrangements have continued to constrain power delivery to homes and industries. Speaking on the government strategy during the ministerial address at the National Gas Day session of the 9th Nigeria International Energy Summit 2026 in Abuja, the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Gas, Ekpo, said the administration of President Bola Tinubu was deliberately reinforcing the entire gas to power ecosystem to support economic growth, industrial opportunity and productivity, and energy security. ECPO also announced the expansion of its free liquefied petroleum gas cylinder distribution program to cover all 6 geopolitical zones as part of efforts to deepen clean cooking adoption, reduce deforestation, and cut household reliance on firewood and charcoal. Still in business, the federal government in the course of the week reaffirmed that engineering-driven solutions are critical to achieving Nigeria's food security, stressing that mechanization, irrigation systems, storage infrastructure, and agro-processing technologies are essential to boosting productivity and reducing post-harvest losses across the country. It also emphasized the role of engineering in driving industrial growth, noting that a strong mechanical and manufacturing base is fundamental to value addition, job creation, and the competitiveness of Nigeria's industrial sector in both regional and global markets. Reports say the position was restated by the Minister of Agriculture and Food Security, Abubakar Kyari, at the inauguration of the 17th National Chairman of the Nigerian Institution of Mechanical Engineers and Executive Committee members in Abuja. Cole Palmer scores first half hat-trick in Chelsea win. Stay tuned for details of this and more after the break. And now we bring you the concluding part on the news within the week. In health, the Federal Ministry of Health and Social Welfare within the week announced major advances in Nigeria's healthcare system aimed at expanding access to specialized medical services and reinforcing the country's role in global health governance. The initiatives are expected to position Nigeria as a regional hub for advanced diagnostics, oncology, and cardiology, while strengthening its leadership in addressing global health challenges such as antimicrobial resistance. In a statement, the ministry said the International Finance Corporation, the Nigeria Sovereign Investment Authority, and MedServ NSIA Advanced Medical Services Limited have signed a strategic agreement to accelerate the nationwide rollout of affordable diagnostics, oncology, and cardiology services. The program will see the expansion of advanced diagnostic centers equipped with modern laboratory and imaging technologies, alongside the development of specialized oncology centers and advanced cardiac care facilities, including catheterization laboratories across multiple locations. Elsewhere, the joint health sector unions Johesu on Friday suspended its nationwide strike 84 days after the industrial action began. This was announced in a communique issued by the union after its expanded National Executive Council emergency meeting held in Abuja. According to the communique, the meeting was convened to review the outcomes of a conciliation meeting between the federal government and Johesu held on Thursday at the headquarters of the Federal Ministry of Labor and Employment. Johesu stressed gratitude to the individuals and institutions that played a role in resolving the crisis. Still in health, the medical director of the Snakebite Treatment and Research Hospital, Gombe State, Dr. Nicholas Amani Haman, in the course of the week, warned snakebite victims against tying the affected limb with pieces of cloth to stop the movement of snake venom, describing the practice as dangerous and outdated. He also cautioned against the use of razor blades or sharp objects to extract supposed poison, noting that such actions are injurious and could reduce a victim's chances of survival. Amani Haman gave the warning during an interview with newsmen while reacting to the death of Nigerian singer Ifunanya Nwagene, who reportedly died after a snake bite in Abuja. According to him, first aid response is critical in snake bite cases. Now to the world of sports, where Cole Palmer scored a first-half hat-trick as Chelsea won bottom of the table woes to continue their good run off form under Liam Resnor. According to reports, the forward had 4 Premier League goals this season before Saturday's match, but almost equaled that tally in just one game as he produced an impressive display. His first 2 came from the penalty spot, first converting coolly into the bottom corner after Joe Pedro had been fouled, then sending the goalkeeper the wrong way for his second, again coming after Pedro had been fouled. Palmer then drove in from the mark, career last pass to wrap up the hat-trick in the 38th minute, with the Wolves' defense having fallen apart. The 3 goals also ensured his name entered the history books as he became the first player in the Premier League to score 3 first-half hat-tricks. Nigeria's Falcons defeated Senegal 1-0 in the first leg of their 2026 FIFA Under-20 Women's World Cup third qualifying round tie in Abeokuta on Saturday. Nigeria dominated the opening exchanges with Kafayat Masifer having her goal-bound effort blocked by Adama Daouf after 4 minutes. Substitute Ifeanyi scored the winning goal for the Falcons in the 50th minute with a header from Moshood's corner. But Nigeria, however, failed to double their lead and will now head into the second leg with slim advantage. The return leg will hold in Dakar next week on Saturday. Still in sports, Senegal head coach Bauyang Fiam has reacted to his team's defeat to the Falconets. The Lionesses fell 1-0 to Moses Aduko's side in the first leg of the 2026 FIFA Under-20 Women's World Cup third qualifying round at the Moshood Abiola Sports Arena, Bekuta, yesterday. Fiam expressed disappointment with the defeat, but is confident of a turnaround in the second leg. On entertainment news, media personality Ebuka Obi Uchendu yesterday marked his 10th wedding anniversary with a romantic re-proposal to his wife Cynthia in Rome. The couple, who got married on February 6, celebrated the milestone with a surprise trip to Vatican City, where Obi Uchendu re-proposed to his wife at St. Peter's Basilica. According to Obi Uchendu, the surprise gesture was planned without Cynthia's knowledge. Lastly, on the news within the week, Nigerian artist Victor Uzochukwu Obekezie, popularly known as Mboma, is strengthening his foothold in the music scene with his EP Street Voltage, released on December 19, 2025. Since its release, the project has recorded steady traction with tracks such as OT Orientation, Miri, and No Bad Energy, drawing attention and connecting with listeners across digital platforms. Born and raised in Lagos, Mboma's sound reflects the city's intensity, diversity, and street culture. Street Voltage captures themes of determination, resilience, and ambition. And that's all we are able to bring to you on the news within the week. Looking at recaps and other events, this has been brought to you by Spectrum Television. Do what's follow us on social media. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, all of which you can find on our website, spectrumtvlive.ng. My name is Uyai MM. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.